on in.
Yeah, have a seat. Excited? Yeah, you did really well in your interview last week. We're excited to have you join the group. Do you want to see what we did with our social anxiety research program last week? Check it out. This is a video of the social interaction test that we use in most of our studies. There's a mouse in this cage here, and you can see our test mouse is really interested in it. See how she's getting right up close to the cage? This is pretty typical in mice. If they come across a mouse they don't know, they want to check it out. Now, look at this mouse. See how she's staying back? She's not approaching the cage, but she's paying attention to it at the same time. We measure how much time the mouse is sort of watching the cage, and we call that social vigilance. This behavior is interesting because developmental psychologists see a very similar combination of avoidance and vigilance sometimes in children. They call it behavioral inhibition, and it's one of the biggest risk factors for developing an anxiety problem later in life. So in humans, we can take a brain scan and see what parts of the brain are active when a person is feeling anxious, but we can't see what individual cells are doing. We can do that in mice. Today, you're going to see why that's important. Let's go up into the lab. Hey, Emily.
Hey.
Remember our new lab member?
Yeah,
You can take it from here?
sure thing.
Okay.
So welcome. Today we're looking at brain tissue that has been stained for individual neurons associated with social vigilance behavior. But before we can have you start helping out, we have to make sure you're wearing all of your personal protective equipment. So the first thing you're going to need is a lab coat, pair of gloves, can't forget the eye protection, and a bike helmet. I'm just kidding on that one. So come on in. We're going to be looking at brain tissue that has been stained for oxytocin-producing neurons. Now, oxytocin is a hormone that has gotten a lot of buzz recently for being associated with good feelings like love, social interaction, and parenting behavior. But oxytocin can actually work to increase anxiety in some circumstances. We're trying to figure out why that is. Our main hypothesis is that oxytocin is working in some regions of the brain to help promote those feel-good feelings, but working in other regions of the brain to actually promote anxiety behaviors. So why don't you take a seat and we can talk about this a little bit more. Here we're looking at slices of brain tissue that are being incubated in an antibody that binds to oxytocin. The antibody has fluorescent molecules in it that allow us to see which neurons are producing oxytocin. So once we finish staining the brain tissue, we mount it into the glass slides and then we can look at it under the microscope. How about we have you come take a look yourself? All right, and it's this way. Hey, Pei. Hey, this is our new undergrad. I was hoping you could show them some of the brains we had previously stained with the oxytocin antibody.
Of course, come on in. So, in order to see the stains we applied, we need to shine a special light onto the slides. It's kind of like a black light. Come here and take a look. Here, we use a special filter to take a picture of the oxytocin cells. It's pretty cool, right? Let's take a picture. Now, without moving the slide, we use a different filter. This time, instead of seeing the oxytocin cells, we see a stain that shows us which cells were active. Each one of these dots represents an active cell. Go ahead and take a picture. Now we can use the computer to put the two images together. These oxytocin cells have the activity markers in them, so they were active. These other cells do not have the markers, so they probably were not active. We can see here that oxytocin neurons were very active in mice showing social anxiety behaviors. When we first discovered this, it was a surprise, because we thought oxytocin was supposed to reduce anxiety behaviors. After doing more experiments, we learned that how oxytocin affects anxiety depends on which part of the brain it is acting in. This helps us interpret experiments looking at how oxytocin influences human behaviors. Well, that about wraps it up. We're very excited to have you in the lab. It was great meeting you. I think Dr. Trainer is waiting for you in his office. Go ahead and head down there.
Hey, welcome back. Come on in. Well, hopefully now you have a better feel for the work that we're doing in the lab. I'm just really excited about this research. I think it's going to help us understand how oxytocin can affect anxiety in humans. Now, undergrads like you can have a really big role in this research. In the beginning, you're mostly going to learn from us, but once you have experience, you'll be able to add to the research yourself, maybe even help us change the direction. Do you have any questions?